You know, it's been kind of crazy, right? This WNBA season has been just electric. And, well, Caitlin Clark, she's at the heart of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Rookie stats, 19.2 points, 5.7 rebounds, 8.4 assists per game.
Just ridiculous. Those aren't just good. Those are...
practically unheard of.
Yeah, practically unheard of.
And what's fascinating to me is how she's like transformed the Indiana Fever.
Yeah.
You know, they went from a team that was really like struggling to find their footing to must-watch basketball.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because it's not just about the numbers with her. It's
the way she plays.
the way she plays. She's captivating people.
It's like this new era of WNBA basketball. And so it leads to a really interesting question.
Okay.
Is Caitlin Clark's, I don't know, kind of meteoric rise, is it causing friction within the league, particularly with established stars like Aja Wilson, Angel Reese? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely a dynamic we see in other sports too. You get this young, phenomenal talent, right? They come in, changes the game, everyone's watching them. And the question then becomes, how does the league itself manage that?
Okay.
And do it, you know, gracefully.
So let's unpack that a little bit, starting with Aja Wilson.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking two-time WNBA MVP, Olympic gold medalist. There's literally a statue of her at the University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
This is a woman who, like, her credentials speak for themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. This past season was, you know, one of her most challenging.
Okay.
And it coincides with Clark having this breakout year.
Wow. And the timing is interesting.
It is. And I think you can't ignore that. And then you couple that with the comments she made about, you know, kind of white privilege and its role in basketball.
Oh, okay. So that's a loaded statement.
Yeah.
Did she ever directly say that that was about Caitlin Clark, or is this just something that kind of people were reading between the lines?
So she never explicitly named Clark.
Okay.
But I think the timing of it all, right? And just kind of the way that the league is changing led a lot of people to connect the dots.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I think, what makes this whole conversation even more, you know...
Layered,
right?
Yeah,
because we're talking about race, we're talking about who gets the spotlight,
right.
We're talking about, you know, potential resentment.
Yeah, how do you manage that?
Exactly.
Right, and it's interesting because, I mean, for years, Aja Wilson was like the face of the league.
Right.
Like, she was the one.
Undeniably dominant.
Right.
On the court.
Yeah.
And then Clark comes in and suddenly there's this shift.
A shift in the narrative.
A shift in the narrative.
And it's making everybody rethink things a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it really does bring up some important points about how, even within the WNBA, we're talking about how we value players.
Oh, interesting.
What does that look like? What are the different styles of play? How do we, you know, celebrate those? And how do those things intersect with race and opportunity?
And then you've got Angel Reese,
right?
Kind of adding her voice to this whole mix. Fresh off, you know, a national championship win with LSU.
Yeah.
Her star is rising.
It is.
But she's raising some serious concerns too.
Yeah, she is.
Like, what's her take on this whole thing?
So I think Reese's situation adds this whole other layer of complexity to it. You know, she's been very vocal about the fact that she's experienced, you know, online harassment.
Wow.
And she believes it's from Clark fans.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things she mentioned specifically was, you know, the use of AI-generated images.
AI-generated images, wow.
Which is, you know, a whole other can of worms that we can kind of unpack.
It takes it to a whole other level.
It does.
Right. What kind of backlash has she gotten for speaking out about all this?
Well, so Reese is known for speaking her mind, let's just say that.
Oh.
She's not afraid to, you know, share her opinion. So her comments have definitely been met with some mixed reviews, you know?
Okay.
You have some people that say, listen, you know, you're unfairly blaming Clark's fan base for this. This isn't a, you know, this is not a Caitlin Clark problem. And then you have others that will point to, you know, some of the backlash that Reese herself has gotten for her own, you know, online presence.
Right.
So
it's like this whole, it's very tangled.
Tangled web.
It is. And it brings up, I think, a lot of important things about just online harassment in general, the challenges of that, especially for athletes who are in the public eye.
Right, right. It seems like the WNBA is kind of walking a tightrope here. On one hand, you've got this incredibly talented rookie in Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
And she is bringing undeniably this surge of positive attention to the league.
And you can't deny it. The numbers are there. Viewership is up, jersey sales through the roof, social media, every time you log on, it's a Caitlin Clark highlight.
Right. It's unavoidable. And what's remarkable is that she's bringing in people that never even would considered watching the WNBA.
She's breaking down barriers.
She is.
And inviting this whole new audience.
Yeah.
And importantly, too, it seems like her fan base is incredibly diverse.
It is. And I think that her popularity, in particular with Black men, is very significant. It challenges a lot of assumptions, I think, about who watches women's basketball.
Right.
And what it says about kind of the broader appeal of her playing style and her personality.
So you've got this influx of new fans, this new energy, new revenue streams.
Exactly.
Which is amazing.
Which is what you want.
For the WNBA.
That's the goal.
But then at the same time, you have these established star players.
Right.
Like Angel Wilson, Angel Reese, who are trying to figure out, okay, what's my place in all of this?
Where do I fit in?
Where do I fit in this new version?
Exactly. How do I make sure that
the WNBA,
that I'm not forgotten?
Yeah.
That my contributions are still valued. And I think that's the tightrope that the league has to kind of navigate, right?
Yeah.
How do you harness all this excitement that someone like Clark brings in?
Right.
But also make sure that the veteran players
don't feel like they're being pushed aside.
Or that their contributions don't matter as much. It's about celebrating the new without diminishing what everyone else has done to get the league to where it is.
It's like growing pains, right?
Yeah.
Like the league is getting so popular.
Right.
Which is amazing, but then
it comes with its own problem.
Yeah, its own
issues,
set of challenges. So, like, where do we go from here? How does the WNBA kind of navigate this and make sure that everyone feels supported?
It's a good question. I think it starts with acknowledging that these things are real.
Okay.
Right? Like these tensions are there. And it makes us ask, like, are these things about race? Are they about jealousy? Or are they really just like about a league that's trying to grow and be recognized?
Right. Find its place.
Yeah. I mean, these are questions that, I think go beyond sports.
Totally.
This is like a microcosm of kind of what we're seeing in society at large.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so how does the WNBA, what can they do to make sure that, all their players feel good?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but I think you have to have these conversations, right? You have to have both the veterans and the upcoming stars in the same room talking about these issues and creating a space where people feel safe to kind of share their experiences.
Right, and feel heard.
Exactly.
Because if you're not having those conversations, then nothing's going to change.
Well, and I think one thing that they could really lean into more is like the storytelling part of it.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Like the WNBA has this incredible history.
Yes.
Of, strong women, of incredible athletes.
Who paved the way.
And I think sometimes we forget that. And so I think really highlighting those stories, talking about the journey, right, of these veteran players, what they had to go through to, build the league to what it is today, and, how they're mentoring these younger athletes. I think that'd be really powerful.
Yeah. Highlight their experience, their leadership.
Absolutely.
Not just what they're doing on the court.
Exactly. Because I think there's this tendency to sort of, put athletes on this pedestal and say, oh, well, they're just supposed to perform.
Right.
And we don't think about the fact that they're, multifaceted people who have, lives, experiences, wisdom to share. Mentorship, all those things. And I think, honestly, we need to be talking about the marketing.
Okay.
And endorsement opportunities and how those things are divided up, right? Yeah. Because on the one hand, Caitlin Clark getting this huge Nike deal.
Huge.
It's amazing. It's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But it also
shows there's a disparity.
It shows that there's a disparity. And so I think the WNBA needs to really look at that and say, okay, how do we create more opportunities for all of our players to benefit financially? Regardless of your race, regardless of how long you've been in the league. And I think it goes beyond the individual endorsements, right?
Okay.
I think the league itself needs to be out there.
Yeah.
Getting sponsorships, getting partnerships that lift up everybody.
That lift up the whole league. Yeah, it's like that rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
So it sounds like communication is a big part of this, right? Like players talking to each other, the league being transparent.
100%. I think that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
If you're not having open and honest communication between the players, the league, and honestly, even the fans, then you're never going to get to a place of kind of understanding and, building trust, right?
Yeah. And like, this whole thing is bigger than basketball.
Right.
Right. This is something that we see.
It's a life thing.
It's a life thing. Like how we embrace new talent.
Right. How you deal with
the old guard versus the new guard. It's everywhere.
Generational divides,
all of that. And so it's like, how do you...
And whose voice gets heard.
Yeah.
Who has the power.
It's fascinating.
It is. And so I think this is a story that, it goes beyond sports.
Totally.
It makes you think about just how we approach change in general.
How we value experience.
Yes.
Yeah, how we make room for everyone.
100%.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
It's like a lot to think about. We've got a league that's on the rise. We've got like this rookie sensation who's changing the game. We've got veteran players who are trying to figure out like where they fit in.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, I think it really does highlight how unique of a position the WNBA is in, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're really fighting for, recognition, financial stability.
Yeah.
They want to be kind of, a bigger part of the cultural conversation. And Caitlin Clark coming in has just,
amplified all of it.
Amplified it. Yeah.
Amplified
it's
it.
like,
yeah.
Put
it on fast forward.
Fast forward a little bit. They're on this train that's moving really fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you steer while
it's going 100 miles an hour? Yeah. And we can't forget too, I mean, the WNBA has this history of like advocating for social justice.
Always. Yeah.
Like it's in their...
Part of their DNA, right?
It's part of their DNA, yeah.
Commitment to equality and representation.
Right. And so this is putting that to the test a little bit.
Right. It's like, okay, you say all these things.
Walk the walk.
Walk the walk, right?
Don't just talk the talk.
Exactly. Because it's one thing to say that you support these things, right?
Right.
But it's a whole other to actually make them happen.
Yeah, to create those conditions.
Exactly.
Right.
And within a professional sports environment, that's really tough.
Yeah, it's high stakes.
High stakes.
Right. So it's like, it's easy to say it, but how do you actually do it?
And you put it into practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I find so interesting about this whole conversation is that, again, I think it's bigger than basketball.
Totally.
Right. It makes you think about the future of women's sports as a whole.
Right. And how do we create this culture?
Yeah. Like, what does that look like?
Where everyone feels seen and valued.
Exactly.
And empowered.
Yeah. To use their platforms.
Yeah.
For things they care about.
So for the listener who's been on this journey with us today, what's like the takeaway? What should they be thinking about as they kind of watch this all play out?
Well, I think at its core, right, it's like, can the WNBA be a place where both Caitlin Clark and Aja Wilson,
right,
Angel Reese, all of these amazing players can thrive at the same time?
At the same time, yeah. Is there room for everybody?
Is there room for everybody? Can it be a league where you can celebrate the new without, diminishing what the players before you have done?
Right, right.
Can it be a place where you can have different styles of play, different personalities?
Yeah.
And see those as, strengths, not weaknesses.
Not things that divide us.
Yeah.
I think that's such a powerful question. It makes you think about like how we as a society deal with change.
Building things, yeah.
How we make space for everybody.
It's hard. It
is hard, but it's a conversation worth having, whether you are a diehard WNBA fan or you're just somebody who's kind of watching this all unfold.
100%.
It's fascinating. And I think it just shows you the power and potential of women's sports.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into this evolving landscape of the WNBA.
Yeah, this can be fun to watch.
It's going to be really interesting to see where it all goes from here. We'll be watching, and we hope you will too.